Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you, of course, another FPL video. In this one, we're going to be looking at my team selection for Game Week 11. We'll also do a brief review of Game Week 10, how we got on with rank gains, rank losses, etc. And then we'll be taking a look at some captaincy data and just some transfer plans as well. So hopefully you enjoy the content. Smash that like button if you do. But let's jump into the content then. And first of all, let's start with Game Week 10 review. Pretty diabolical week for me, to be honest. A bit of a swingy week, I think, as most expected. Of course, I completely bottled the -4. It would have been my first of the season, but if you watch my Game Week 10 video, I was looking at bringing in Mohamed Salah for a -4 and selling Erling Haaland. I didn't go ahead with the moves in the end. I just ended up rolling, which wasn't really considered as an option for me until later on in the week, but I did decide to do that. So yeah, put the armband on Haaland, didn't deliver this time around, unfortunately. City just not looking at it, to be honest. Injuries are just really killing them at the moment. They're really missing KDB's creativity, I think, and ultimately just left with a Haaland blank. Of course, I am recording this video, as well as you may have noticed, with Mbermo's current non-known score, and of course a asterisk against the 31 points currently. As it stands, it is 1-0 to Brentford at time of recording at half time, but of course we'll know the extent of the damage that this game's going to do to that rank in a few hours. So it could be as low as 1.1 million, maybe even 1.2 million by the time that game is finished, especially I think if Flecken keeps a clean sheet, already on 4 saves at half time, so could be a bit of a killer. But overall, you know, Sells delivering from my goalkeeper perspective. Very happy to be owning him. Another 6-pointer in the bag for him. The rest of the defence, nothing to scream home about. Of course, Son, a bit of concerning with his minutes, maybe 55 minutes in the end, grabbing that assist. Otherwise would have been a 1-pointer, to be honest. So very glad that he got that, just scraping some points back. Chris Wood with another goal, ticking over fantastically. Havertz really disappointing. Could have actually done a Havertz to Cunha move for free, which would have been a net of +5 points if I wanted to have done that without the Salah move. Didn't go ahead with that either in the end, so only got 1 point from him. 4 points, of course, from the Haaland blank, and then Rodgers and Semenyo both on the bench there with 19 points between them. So bit of a shocking week overall, guys, but we move. It's how FPL goes sometimes. You've got to take the rough with the smooth. And it was just one of those rough weeks. So let's see what the transfer plans are for Game Week 11. We now do have 2 free transfers, so no -4s considered this week. I only think I've really got one route. I still don't want to bring in Mo Salah until probably about Game Week 15 now. I think I'm just going to cut my losses and accept that he is going to be damaging the rank. Of course, I need Erling Haaland to really kind of step up and damage those that have removed him. Ultimately, if he doesn't, I just have to accept that as the decision. I am now looking at Havertz to Cunha and, of course, Rico Lewis as well there to Udogie. So I think Cunha, we've mentioned him last week. Great fixtures, great numbers. Of course, looked fantastic against Palace as well. So let's see what happens with him at Southampton at home. Arguably the best fixture that you can probably get at the moment in the Premier League. So I think he's an obvious move. With Udogie, it's an interesting one. We'll get some data in front of us shortly to back up the decision on that. But I was looking at multiple options. I was looking at Manchester United defence, looking at Brentford maybe as a defence, and just there wasn't really an obvious option for me until I started looking at the numbers for captaincy data. And we'll get into that shortly. But ultimately, the Ipswich at home game and the Fulham at home game are the 2 games I'm probably going to be playing him in anyway in these next 3. Their fixtures are a mixed bag, so I understand why a Spurs defender maybe isn't the ultimate or optimal option to go for this week, especially with the likes of United having 3 great fixtures coming up. My only concern about United is if you go for Mazraoui or Dalot, not only is their price is a little bit higher than Udogie. In fact, Mazraoui is actually cheaper at 4.5, but we don't actually know how Manchester United are going to line up yet under Amorim. Now, his first game in charge is that Ipswich fixture. So you get Leicester this weekend with Van Nistelrooy still, then we have the international break, and then it's Ipswich first. But we don't actually know if they're going to line up as the current wing-backs, if we might see Mazraoui at right wing-back, for example, maybe Dalot at right centre-back is one of the examples I've seen before. But we actually don't know how he's going to line up. So my only kind of warning to that is the fixtures look great, but it maybe isn't the best time to jump onto those assets when we don't know who's nailed or not under the new manager. I would say Bruno Fernandes from a Manchester United perspective is probably going to be the best asset to own over the course of the next 3 weeks. From that defensive point of view with Spurs, though, Yes, they're not as good maybe from that defensive point of view as their attack at the moment, but I still feel like this Ipswich at home fixture has a massive opportunity of upside. And again, we'll move into the next set of data here, because ultimately, with Udogie playing on the left-hand side, there was one thing that I noticed of Son while he was playing in this weekend, was that I think he was maybe playing a little bit reserved. Not just because of maybe the injury. Maybe Ange also told him, don't strain yourself. The plan was always maybe to take him off in that second half. And I ultimately didn't see him making those penetrating runs as much as he did before the injury. So maybe there's been a bit of a kind of conservation approach to not only personally, but maybe from management in terms of an instruction for him. But I noticed a lot of Udogie overlap coming into play on that left-hand side. And what's interesting on this database here is you see that the opponents of Tottenham this week, being Ipswich, they have actually conceded 24 key passes on that left-hand side flank in the last 4 game weeks. So that's where Son operates. That's where Udogie operates. I'm anticipating a huge haul if Udogie can manage to keep a clean sheet. I think he gets at least one attacking return on this game week based on the data. I could be completely wrong, but I just love when I see this type of information that maybe Udogie's flying under the radar as a differential pick, only 4.9 million as well, so an easy move from Rico Lewis for me. I just think it's a no-brainer. Of course, then on Son and the data point here, we can see there's a couple of points. So obviously 24 key passes conceded on his side is really promising for a captaincy shout. And of course, the opposition's XGC non-penalty conceded as well, 10.38 in the last 4 game weeks for Ipswich. Really diabolical in terms of them being able to keep a clean sheet and keeping Son out. Regardless of how many minutes he gets and maybe the form he's in, I still feel like this is an opportunity where we get a few attacking returns from him. And that's all I want. Realistically, a goal and assist would probably be enough for me to warrant captaining him over someone like Erling Haaland based on the data that we see here. There's also another point. 24 is the points I've given him over the last 4 game weeks with that asterisk. That is bearing in mind the playing one. So there has been a few weeks where he hasn't played in the last 4 game weeks. So I've taken that data and that number from the last 4 game weeks where he's appeared. So sorry if that looks a little bit confusing, hence the asterisk. And of course with Brian Mbermo just underneath, it's 25 before, at time of recording, before we get the result of the Fulham and Brentford game. So really, in terms of this data here, I think out of all the big hitters and even some of those differentials, I can only realistically see 2 options. To be honest, although Haaland certainly looks like he could be a great option against Brighton, I think Son and Salah in their own rights against the opposition look like a great choice. I think Salah in form, Villa of course conceding four goals against Spurs this weekend. Looking like 34 points over the last 4 game weeks. So consistent on penalties, always at the heart of that Liverpool attack. I think if I was a Salah owner, and I was last week, I would have probably put the armband on him over Son because I would have owned both of them this week. So that just goes to show how much confidence I think he's playing with and how much confidence FPL managers should have in the Egyptian King. So good luck for this week with captaincy, but that's going to wrap up the data section. Moving then into the team selection, we do have my defensive assets here. Fabianski does come into play against Everton at home. It's a more favourable fixture, in my opinion, than Newcastle for Nottingham Forest. So although Matt Sells has delivered very, very well for me consistently, I think Fabianski against Everton makes more sense. Everton not scoring many goals. Under Dyche, just a very, very kind of, just an average side, to be honest. I'm really hoping for a 0-0 in this game because at the moment I am playing Mikalenko as well against West Ham, of course, who haven't really shown that much attacking potential either. So really hoping for a 0-0 ball draw, to be honest here, guys, for 2 clean sheets across them. Ryan Aigner, arguably the best defensive and attacking fixture that we can probably have, and he's an asset that ultimately can deliver both. He can deliver that defensive numbers for us, and he can also deliver the attacking returns too. So really looking forward to what he can do. Of course, Destiny Udogie would possibly make the change in the team. He'd come in potentially for that Ipswich at home fixture, looking like a really strong fixture for him. Of course, not only just from the attacking threat, but also that defensive point of view as well. So really strong backline this week. Going into the midfield, then we do have a midfield 4 of Palmer, of course, currently flagged at the moment, 75% chance. Got a bit of a knock against Manchester United, was seen limping off at Old Trafford. But ultimately, the results are still not in. I think the most recent comments we got from Maresca is that he's got a scan coming up to see the extent of the damage, but at the moment the thinking is that he's a little bit lucky to have got away with less than effectively a severe injury there. So hopefully he does showcase in this game, as I think he's the best attacking outlet that Chelsea have. He's on penalties. Of course, didn't deliver against Manchester United in the last game week, but ultimately, I think, he could still deliver against Arsenal as well, right? He's got everything in his locker. Of course, we've already spoken about Son in a bit more detail, so I won't go into him now. I think Ipswich at home is a fantastic fixture. With Mbeumo and Semenyo playing each other, ultimately great attacking options. Brian Mbeumo on penalties, always an attacking threat for Brentford, always that outlet. Playing on that wing, and Bournemouth do tend to concede a few chances down that right-hand side. Semenyo played fantastically well against City, ironically his highest point-scoring outing since the season's begun against arguably the hardest opposition yet. So really happy as an owner of Semenyo going into that Brentford away fixture. Then if we move into my front line at the moment, I have got, of course, Haaland still, Chris Wood, and, of course, Cunha coming in as that second free transfer. So Southampton at home, I think this is a no-brainer. Regardless of what I do in defence, whether Udogie comes in or not, I think the Havertz to Cunha move is pretty much locked in for me. I haven't done it as of yet in time of recording on Monday evening, but I do think that this is probably going to be a move I make this week. Chris Wood against Newcastle, not the best fixture, but it is at home. So Newcastle have got a little bit better defensively in recent weeks, I must say, but I do think that Forest being in third place now in the Premier League, they are a complete just shock to me, to be honest. I've always thought that Forest had potential. I actually started the season with Anthony Elanga. My combination was Muniz and Elanga, probably the worst options I could have gone with. If I went with Smith Rowe and Chris Wood instead, I would have been in a very different position this season already. But yeah, honestly, I thought that there was going to be some attacking threat there. I thought Awoniyi may eat into Chris Wood's minutes, but honestly, he's just been so consistent that he just cannot be dropped at this point. He just seems to work under Nuno's system. He only needs one chance to score a goal, and that's all that we want in FPL, right? For our forwards to score goals and give us attacking returns. So fantastic value, really great that I own him. Fantastic asset, to be honest. Looking at Erling Haaland then finally, of course, captaincy is a big choice this week. And I've already mentioned, of course, I only see myself really captaining Son or Salah. If I own Salah, it probably would have been him, but I don't. So I do think I'm going to be captaining Son. Maybe a bit of a shock. I mean, it's a little bit too west in terms of the differential at this stage of the season. I don't really need to do it because the ranks are so congested. I don't really need to look at a differential at this stage. But this was the plan. Ultimately, once Saka became injured and I moved Son in, I was always thinking that he was going to be the best captaincy option for Game Week 11. It was only because of his injury and his reduced minutes that's got a little bit of doubt sewn into my mind. So I think if I can look beyond that, also it's worth noting that Richarlison took a bit of a knock, so maybe eats less into the minutes of Son this week. I think if we can get 2 attacking returns for him, I would be happy on this week. Even if Haaland goes and scores a hat-trick, I would still be happy that I've made my bed ultimately in a guy that I think has phenomenal attacking potential against this Ipswich side. So captain armband on him at the moment. At the bench, I do have Sells playing Newcastle at home. Could actually come in for Fabianski. I haven't made a final decision on that. But ultimately, I just think that I would prefer... I think that I've got more of a backing on West Ham keeping a clean sheet this week, though, other than Forest. Everton's outlet just isn't there, whereas Newcastle can definitely score a goal if they need to. With Palmer being possibly injured, I do have the option of either Gabriel or Rodgers to be first bench option. I think I'm going to opt with Gabriel. The reason behind that really is if Palmer's injured, although there's João Felix and there's, of course, Nkunku, they've got fantastic attacking assets at Chelsea. So for sure, there's not a like for like with Cole Palmer because he's arguably one of the best players in the league right now. But they've definitely got options. So if Palmer is fully injured and out, then Chelsea have definitely got the potential to score a goal still. But without Cole Palmer, maybe Gabriel has more of a chance of keeping a clean sheet. So I think I'm more comfortable putting him as the first bench as opposed to Rodgers at Liverpool away. And then, of course, I've got Greaves on the bench there, last place, that's currently injured. So nothing really to scream out about there. That's pretty much the team selection wrapped up. So before we do sign off the video, guys, again, a shout to the mini league. Of course, it is just for fun and bragging rights, but we still like to shout out the community members here. So we have seen a slight change from last week where Mr. Patrick has just dropped into second place there as Janice has had a very, very strong week so far with 65 points. I haven't checked the teams though, to be honest. So again, this is before the Brentford and Fulham game is concluded. This could still juggle in between the time that, of course, you're viewing versus my time of recording. But yeah, keep it up, guys. I hope the season's going well for you. We're going to wrap up the video there. Really hope you enjoyed this one. Remember to smash a like on the video. Let's aim for 10, 15 likes on this video, please, guys. That would be fantastic. Remember to subscribe as well if you are new around here. At least one video per week coming your way moving forward. And yeah, thanks, guys, again for checking out the video. Take care and see you in the next one.